Hi, pet lovers. Thank you for joining Gina's grooming channel, and thank you for joining us on another episode of our vlog where we discuss grooming industry subjects, mostly for aspiring groomers, people who are interested in the grooming industry, but also for pet lovers who really want to understand what groomers go through. Now, today's subject is going to be working with senior pets, so grooming senior pets. And for those owners out there who do have senior pets, this is a really great subject for you to kind of join in on the discussion, understand what roles and responsibilities the groomers obviously have when working with senior pets, and then also as an owner, what your roles and responsibilities are to your pet. So let's go ahead and jump in and talk about working with senior pets. So talking about senior pets is a very special place in my heart, has a very special place in my heart, because I do a lot of senior pets, and I will tell you right now that it is very difficult to work with senior pets. I don't necessarily advertise that I work with senior pets, because if I worked on older pets just one after another, that would be a really, really difficult lifestyle, a really difficult job, because when senior pets start aging, the grooming process does become a little difficult, and we're going to be talking about some of the things that you typically see that senior pets do as they age. And we're also going to be talking about the changes to your liability. So knowing that if you're working with senior pets, you are actually increasing the risk of injury, mostly to the dog and mostly self-inflicted by the dog. But we're going to talk about the typical behaviors as dogs age, as pets age, that you can be kind of expecting, and then so that you're prepared for that. So for you aspiring groomers out there, I would probably recommend that you don't start your career working with senior pets, not only for your own soul, because it is really difficult, but also because you want to make sure that you have the experience, that 10,000 hours that you might need, because if you're working with a difficult senior pet, there are going to be techniques that you're going to be applying that took years and years of mastery that you're going to apply to this pet, because you're going to have to do something either very quickly, or the pet is not standing up, and you're going to have to go ahead under their body and kind of have a weird angle to do a grooming technique. So just know, aspiring groomers, definitely if you are ready to jump in and work with senior pets, more power to you, but just know your limitations. Make sure that you're doing the right thing for the pet, and that when you're working with senior pets, you are ready to do so. Let's go ahead and start with some of the basics. So why groom senior pets? A lot of people out there are saying, why put them through all of this grooming procedure? And obviously there are dogs that don't need professional grooming. They still obviously need their nails clipped, their ears cleaned, but if you have, let's say, a very smooth coated dog, or let's say a short coated Chihuahua, you may get away with just using body wipes as they age and not having them have to stand on a table, get dematted, get a haircut, all of those things that are involved in grooming usually. But so why do we have to groom these pets? Is that coated dogs, yes, their coat may get a little thinner as they age, but they still need the haircut, or they get matted, so it can become a medical issue. So yes, it is a little rough on the pets, and we do our best. And we're going to talk about mitigating strategies and safety strategies to keep these pets safe while we're grooming them, but you don't have a choice. And if you are an experienced groomer and one of your specialties is senior pets, you're going to be working with these pets, taking them all the way through their life to the rainbow bridge, and making sure that their coat stays healthy and that no medical issues are created from lack of grooming. So I know it's a hard kind of a thing that you have to face, especially when you're an owner with a senior pet, but you have to make sure that you work with your groomer, don't give up on your senior pets, and know that if you don't groom them, worse things may happen. So let's talk about the typical behavior changes that I have seen. Yes, there's 1 in 1,000 dogs that age very gracefully, and as they age, they stay incredibly sweet, and you can groom them, and it's not a problem. But the majority of pets out there do have some behavior changes, and it's due to no fault of their own, just the aging process. So let's talk about, especially to aspiring groomers, let's talk about some of the normal behavioral changes that you may see as a pet ages. Okay, so some typical things that we see is the dog may lose vision, so may lose its sight, go blind, and this causes the dog to start getting a little touchy about any movement around their head and face. The way that I describe it is that it's almost like seeing shadows. They get very confused if they start to lose their vision. And the offshoot of losing their vision is that they might start snapping at your hand. They might start snapping at your equipment. So just be very aware that if a dog loses its vision, they might start getting a little touchy about anything having to do with working on their face. Now, another aspect that's very common when dogs age and pets age is that they lose their hearing, so they can go deaf, and let me kind of combine it, they can go blind and deaf, so you can really startle a pet. You got to be really careful when grooming a pet that can't hear you coming. You can't give them notice, so you kind of have to, and we'll talk about mitigating strategies, figure out ways to kind of approach them from the side, slowly come up to their face, let them know that you're there, that you're going to be working with them, so that you don't startle them, and especially if you're working on a table, you don't want them to go ahead and jump off a table and have this surprise factor. So just know that if you're working with a blind or deaf dog, you have to go ahead and warn them before you're approaching them to make sure that they stay safe. Other common things that happen when the pets age is that they have bad legs, they might get a bad back, so you got to be extra careful, of course, when this happens. That also means that they can't stand for very long, and putting them in a belly band and forcing them to stand is not always the right solution. You want to work around the dog's comfort level, and as a groomer, you're going to be bending, you're going to be contorting your body to make sure that you are working in the comfort level of the senior pet. So make sure, as in a groomer and as an aspiring groomer, just be prepared for that, because really the onus is going to be more on you than on the pet to make sure that they are comfortable throughout their groom. And then what you also commonly see is like doggy dementia. The dogs sometimes will just bark at a space on the wall. They'll just be barking at the air. They'll also have this kind of ants in the pants where they are just moving around incessantly, just dancing because they're not comfortable. They may be in pain. So you're working with this animal that is, constantly moving. And if they're blind and deaf, they're snapping at you. It's very hard to approach. So just know that this becomes a very, very difficult situation when working with senior pets that you have to groom. We have to get around that. So just know the expectation. Again, not all of the dogs go that direction, but most do. They'll have some element. Some of these elements are all combined. They'll be blind, deaf, dementia, ants in the pants, and you've got to deal with all of this and produce a groomed dog. So just be aware that that is definitely something that happens to most senior pets, and we just have to be patient and work around it. Okay, so let's talk about mitigating strategies, what we need to do as groomers. We're going to talk about the physical mitigating strategies to stay safe with the pet, and then we're going to finish with client communication, so how to communicate with the client, okay? So the basic mitigating strategies, and I always do this with my senior pets, is nothing on the throat. This way you can talk to an owner and say, listen, nothing has been on the trachea. There has been no pressure on the dog. So make sure that you learn to harness your senior pets. So you're going to basically go ahead and put the grooming loop around one armpit, right, and through the chest area. Okay, for some dogs, their chest may have some injuries, so you're going to have to talk about mitigating strategies with the owners with that. But most dogs, if they're senior, you don't want to put any pressure around their throat or their neck in any way. You also want to be concerned about working on an elevated surface with a senior pet. For working with small dogs, we would be talking about putting them on an elevated surface on a grooming table. But definitely for senior older dogs, don't even consider that for most dogs. Most situations, you want to go ahead and work with your pet on the floor. We released a video just recently about working with a pet on the floor, so make sure to look for that on our channel. That gives you some tips and tricks when working with your senior pet on the floor, or if you're an aspiring groomer, how you would go ahead and set up your salon to work with pets on the floor to make sure that you decrease the risk of them jumping off the table. I work with some senior pets that honestly, they just want to go ahead and leap off the table through the whole entire groom. So at a certain point, you want to go ahead and make the decision, okay, we're working with this pet on the floor for their own safety. And then the last mitigating strategy that I'm going to talk about, it kind of involves our fourth point, which is client communication. But what I like to do at a certain point in a dog's age, in their grooming life cycle, if you will, is I involve the owner. I know when to kind of call uncle, as it were, to say, you know what, this is too much for me and the client needs to be involved. So I do mommy and me sessions, daddy and me sessions, basically client and the doggy sessions, so that the client really understands what is going on, and then they're involved to help hold the pet for certain things, and also give that pet the security that their pet parent is there. Now, I will tell you this to aspiring groomers or any groomers who are going to jump into the world of working with senior pets, is that the clients, when they actually get involved with grooming the pets, they actually say, oh my gosh, I had no idea. A lot of times they have no idea how difficult it is to work with their senior pet. All their life, Fluffy might have been the perfect grooming dog and gotten an A+ on every report card for grooming. But as they become more senior, and it's to no fault of their own, they just become really, really difficult. And like I said, dementia and doing this ants in the pants and walking and potentially hurting themselves, potentially biting at scissors, potentially, smashing their head on a piece of equipment. So all of this is happening. And if you involve the clients, they get to see this. And again, it's for the comfort of the pet. It really helps you, but it also allows the clients to understand what we're going through. So that's where I'm going to finish up with, is client communication. Now, I am a big, big proponent about grooming communication, proper communication with the clients, for groomers to start really over communicating with clients, because you can save yourself a lot of headaches, a lot of problems with this kind of communication. So with senior pets, this communication has to grow tenfold. Wow, do you need to communicate with your clients? You have to explain to them that anything can happen. Now, I'm going to be honest, is that I've never lost a dog on my table, but that is not to say that that cannot happen. I've had dogs have seizures on the table. I've had dogs have different types of health issues on the table. So understand that that can happen with a senior dog, and you need to communicate that with the client very openly. I'm going to tell you this, aspiring groomers, is that if a client is not willing to understand the difficulty of working with their senior pet, and you have red flags going on in your head, and you're like, oh my gosh, there is a liability, this dog can hurt themselves, and the owner is not understanding, you have to walk away. You're not going to win the situation. If an owner truly believes that their pet is going to be injured solely by the methods and the techniques that a groomer is doing, that is basic grooming, doing all those mitigating strategies that we talked about, making sure the dog is harnessed, taking extra care with the dog, working with them on the floor, and the owner is still looking for, let's say, a scapegoat to the dog just being older, you're not going to win this fight. I will tell you this from experience, is that even the nicest owners, when they lose a pet, that's grief, and they're looking for an answer. And now, nothing ever happened with me personally, but I had, just to give you an example, as a groomer who was working for me, she decided to do something nice for an owner. The dog was older dog, it was a little French bulldog, and she did the anal glands without the owner's approval. And that goes to talk about another issue in grooming, is never do anything without owner's approval. It's their pet, they need to give the thumbs up and sign off on anything. But this groomer thought that she was doing the right thing, felt that this dog needed its anal glands expressed the anal glands, and dog went home, everything was fine. Within 24 hours, the dog passed. It was just terrible. But the owner, because found out about the anal glands and we had been talking about it, connected her grief and the loss of the pet, it was like a 13 or 14-year-old Frenchie, to this unauthorized anal gland expression that one of my groomers did. And so this lady actually paid for a necropsy. I think our company actually picked it up because she wanted to make sure that it wasn't the groomer's fault. So the reason it wasn't, just to finish that story with, it's not a good ending. Obviously, the dog, it had to pass to the Rainbow Bridge at that time. It was his time at the time. But the bad thing, and this is what I kind of want to share with you guys, is that owners in their grief might not help it, but they might connect their dog's passing or some kind of a pet injury to their grooming experience. So you need to have an amazing relationship with owners that you're working with their senior pets. They need to know that anything can happen at any time, that this is a team effort between the groomer and the pet owner, okay, and that the groomer is actually doing something that, yes, a lot of groomers will say, you know what, I'm not going to work with senior pets. I get a lot of those. I get a lot of senior pets that get kicked out of other salons, and I get referred to by other groomers, or they know that I will go ahead and take those dogs, because if I don't believe that I have a solid communication with that owner, I will respectfully decline the business. That is to protect me. That is also to protect the energy with which I groom with the pets, because if I think that there's a red flag and that the owner is going to include me on the list of potential reasons why a pet may have an injury or pass, and this pet is senior and it just may be their time, I will red flag that and know that I can't win that situation. So just be aware that protect yourself. Normally the owners are very understanding. They're very thankful that you are there to take their pets to the next level. Also know, aspiring groomers, that the level after you, if you're a special needs or a senior dog pet groomer, is that you may have to refer them to a vet tech or do veterinary grooming, where the dog is now being groomed under veterinary care. So that is then the next step. So if you respectfully decline business with an owner that you see isn't quite going to be willing to understand what you are doing and participating, they don't want any part of it, they don't want to be in the room while you're grooming a dog, and all of these red flags are going through, it's okay to say, I'm not going to be able to groom your dog, but let me refer you to a veterinarian. And if you are listening to some of our vlogs, know that as an aspiring groomer, you should now have a relationship with a veterinarian in your area that you can go ahead and refer these clients to get the care that they need for their senior pets. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. I mean, obviously, there's a few points that I didn't stress on. I really want to stress on the communication. But part of the communication is, when you're working with senior pets, you're not looking for perfection. You just want to make sure that the dog is clean and that is healthy and that it can go a certain amount of time without having to go get professionally groomed again. So keep the pets as short as possible. Make sure that they stay clean and healthy. Communicate with the owner, and you could really go ahead and see those pets. And let me tell you, when you are there for those pets, it is so satisfying to be there for the pets. It's so wonderful also when a client is grateful for the work that you do, when they see how difficult it is to work with their senior pets, and they know what you're doing for them to make sure that their pet stays well and healthy. Guys, thank you for joining. Thank you to all who have subscribed. If you like this video, we really appreciate you clicking that thumbs up. Thanks for putting down any comments down below the video. We really appreciate your time. We will see you soon. Thanks.